Welcome. Sandoval Communications presents video streaming of this special budget workshop meeting of Sandoval's HOA. This workshop will discuss the 2021 budget for Sandoval. The live stream is simulcast on Sandoval's official communications Facebook page, Sandoval Cape Coral. Alternate viewing of this meeting is also available for your convenience 24/7 on our YouTube channel, Sandoval Video Box, and on Sandoval's website, www.livesandoval.com. Consider subscribing to support Sandoval Video Box on YouTube by clicking both the subscribe button and bell to be notified of future meetings and presentations by Sandoval Communications. This special meeting will begin shortly. Sandoval Communications thanks you for your support and participation by watching this meeting.
Budget workshop. Let's have the call to order. Today is Wednesday, October 28th, and it's 16:05 hours. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
What's that?
16:05?
16:05 hours?
Yeah, 4:05.
Oh, sorry, 16:05, sorry. Where'd that come from?
The next one's 17.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I thought I had the date wrong. All right, so we'll take a quick roll call. Vice President Spooner.
Present.
Treasurer Bill Tubb.
Present.
Director Scott DeFilippis. Not here. Director Palmer. She messaged that she'll be arriving late. Yeah, thanks. Director Roper. Hello. And Director Don Wells.
Here.
And our General Manager, Casey, how are you? Please confirm proof of notice.
Proof of notice is here.
Perfect. Thank you. So at this time, I'll ask our Treasurer and our General Manager to lead the budget workshop. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Well, at our last board meeting, we went over the revenue portion of it. I don't think we need to reread that. If it's your pleasure to have Casey read all of the expenditure lines, we can go through it line by line, or if not, you can just present your questions and we can address your questions. What's your pleasure?
Well, I personally have several areas that I would like to address, and I think the others are not significant on what the budget bottom line would be.
So you're not interested in listening to it line by line?
I personally not.
Okay.
I've read it.
Okay.
I'm not speaking for others.
Okay. Well then, let's start with questions. If you've got several you want to start with?
Yeah, go ahead, Don.
Okay. The items that have affected the increase in the budget are in several categories. The first category is in personnel, and the health insurance is an area of concern. In that last year it was $11,000, and if we pick a socio or first service, it would go up to $35 to $42. The basement management fee, which was at $59,856, there's a range that could be $48,000, it could be $62, or it could be $85, depending on who you picked. So in the area of admin, I see a $90,000 increase. And I also see that on line item 5200, staff salaries, last year it was $375,000. The estimate on the budget is $420,000, and with the information that we've received, it's considerably higher if one of the other companies were picked. So I would be concerned that could be grossly underestimated, depending on what type of property management company we come up with. In the area of insurance,
Would you like to suggest a change?
What I like to suggest a change. Let me just point these out, and then as far as how the change, let you know.
Can I just ask you a question?
Yes.
Are you, when you say you select one of the other management companies grossly higher, so when you say that, are you referring to our current management's current prices or our current manager's proposed prices?
current manager's proposed prices for next year. And I could give you these numbers, but I don't want to state those. Yeah, right. The insurance obviously is an area of concern because after we approved our budget last year, the insurance was a non-renew for our general liability, and we had an increase above the projected amount of $143,000, which is now in this budget. And that is something that if you, on a homeowner's perspective, the insurance cost to each homeowner by this tremendous increase is $100 per door.
Exactly.
So that means that if, a homeowner's paid for the increase of insurance because of the claims that we have suffered, that would cost each of us $100 or $25 more per quarter. And I think everybody needs to realize that, this is not something small. And right. It's tremendously affecting our budget.
You also have to realize that we're paying that $100 per door in 2020 as well. It was not in the budget, but we are paying it. So
exactly. So we've had a double hit on this one.
Yes.
A double whammy.
Other things are not being funded this year to pay that.
Exactly. But I think everyone needs. When we're talking about budget, I think it's good that our community and our residents understand the dilemma that is created in the budget. Landscape is another area that I see some significant increases, and I have some concerns with that. On line item 5620, in the 2020, that line item was $64,500, and I see that has been raised to $80,000. Line item 5625 in 2020 was $15,000. Plus, this in 2020 there was a huge contribution from the reserve to trim every tree in our community, and then this has gone up $10,000. So, and if you recall, last year in balancing our budget, our landscape contract for our general areas was $300,000 and went to $450,000. So we increased that budget $150,000. And I think landscape, was recognized last year, and if we have an area that we need to balance this budget, I cannot see how we can justify an increase in this particular area myself. That's just a personal opinion. And then another thing I noticed on 5630, that this year the mulching was $76,000, and in 2021 that went down to $70,000. And I don't think that the thickness of the mulch that we're getting can become much thinner. I think that it would have to stay almost the same. I can't see how we could get that to go down. So that's an area. And then the last area of which I don't disagree with, but I think it's also is an area that we all need to be aware of, is the contingency. As last year we put in $24,000 in contingency, and in 2021 it is recommended that we double that, and we put a little bit more than double, and we put in $52,400. And everyone.
Discussion about revenues.
Yeah.
That is a plug number from the additional revenues that will be coming in from the bulk telecom. So it's just a plug number.
Okay.
It's not being increased for a purpose. It's just balancing the budget.
But I think that that's important to know, that we're trying to build a contingency, and I think that that's important. But it is something. So if you take all of those numbers, that I've got $90,000 for personnel, and depending on what the burden rate would be, that could be even higher than that. The insurance at $143,000, the landscaping at $25,000, the contingency at $28,000. That's $286,000 up over this current budget. And if you look at all the other items, it could vary, a little bit. So if you take that number and just for talking purposes and extrapolate that out to the 1,425 homes, that would be an increase of $200 per homeowner per year, or $50 per quarter. And if that was $590 plus $50, it would mean the rate would go to $640 per quarter. I'm not advocating that the homeowners have a rate of that increase, because if you extrapolate it again, that's a 34% increase in the budget. So I think there has to be some way that we can determine if we have to have these numbers, and also how much we think we can take out of the telecommunications, and how much homeowners should help to ante up to make this a reasonable, balanced approach. I know that the the Finance Committee, in their due diligence, felt that they could have no rate increase in the HOA fee. But I think that, when we all have skin in the game, anything I have skin in the game in, I have more concern about, and I feel a part of it. And if I don't, then somebody else is paying, and I don't think that necessarily is a good way to run our HOA. I think that I lost my train of thought. We should consider, a portion from the telecommunications and a portion from a rate increase on the HOA fee. I know what I was going to say. Is there some other items other than the clubhouse that we need to take into consideration that comes from the telecommunications fund? And one of that is that we had earmarked some funding for the Taylor Morrison litigation, which is coming up. And if we take all the money out of that fund except what we will need to build the clubhouse, I think that we're going to be short. So I don't think my philosophy on closing things out, I would prefer to close them out once the projects are done, rather than anticipating they're going to be done and you don't know what's going to happen, because you never know with any project or anything what the final number is going to be till the last check is written. So I'm thinking that, to just take 1/4 and put that towards the clubhouse when we have the litigation money that's going to be coming out of there, until we know what that number would be, we shouldn't take all of it. I think that would be a mistake. And I will end my conversation and let everyone talk about it.
I can respond to the litigation comment. We have paid out $25,000, I believe, in a.
We sent one check to Morgan & Morgan for $25,000, but it turns out I thought that was going to be paying for the experts, and it's not. It's sitting at Morgan & Morgan, and we're expected to fund all the others in addition to that.
It's a retainer.
Exactly. It's a retainer. It's not paying for the experts.
Correct.
We also have, I believe in the budget, $30,000 set aside for legal expenses. I think this year was a little bit higher, especially because of the change in our management, and we're still going to be below there. I think we're at $19,000 this year. Is that correct?
19, yeah.
Yes.
That's just as far as the numbers. In terms of some of the items you mentioned, Don, for instance, insurance, we did have a very good call today, and we're optimistic we can get a more favorable rate. That said, we can't guarantee it, so the budget needs to reflect what currently is. And although we're disappointed with that number, we don't have control currently over that number. Is there any portion or any jail line that you can point to that you really feel that we need to have a fluid discussion to get the number down?
Well, I think the personnel numbers are what is. I think we need to have a negotiation once we decide which property management companies we're going to, negotiate with for a contract, to see if we can get that to better than what we've seen on the paperwork already.
Absolutely agree that.
But I think that's.
If we do that and get a lower number, that's good for us. But we can't budget a lower
Well, exactly.
number because we might.
And,
do that.
No. I don't disagree with that either. But I just think that. So as far as that negotiating that, I think it's going to happen, but it's not going to be happening before we can approve the budget. And I'm concerned that that personnel line item 5,200 is not funded sufficiently.
Okay.
Well, that number is from Pope, so that would continue all of our current employees.
Right.
And I think if we don't renew with Pope, we plan on having the new management company absorb our employees. So I don't think they'll get a raise from that, but I also wouldn't think they get take a pay cut either.
Well,
that number probably is appropriate.
Well, I don't know that it's appropriate. I think when I'm looking at the numbers that were on these sheets here, they were bigger numbers than this number that's plugged in here to the budget.
The Pope proposal number, I agree with Don. The Pope's proposed number in their response is greater than the number that Pope provided you.
Well, Maybe they were
And
gonna give
these were the
everybody a
numbers
raise.
we worked from.
Maybe they were planning on giving everybody a
No,
raise.
here's the numbers.
I think just so I understand, I think you're saying the opposite of what Don said. I think you're agreeing that the number is actually
The number here that's on this proposal is low
is low.
compared to what the proposal
Correct.
salary
Correct.
burden
Here they
cost
You
is.
said
This is
proposal,
this
you meant
year.
budget.
This is Pope.
The number on the
This
budget is low, correct?
The number in the budget is low.
You said the number on the proposal is low.
Okay, sorry.
Now, I think these numbers can be negotiated, but I don't think you can negotiate it before we fix this budget.
That's with burden.
But that includes health, doesn't it?
No.
Does it not?
Health is 380 to 620 a month, depending on what program
Say
they
we had
take.
another line in here for health too. Okay. You got do you have a suggestion?
The only suggestions that I have is I think we have to split this between homeowners' HOA fee and some telecommunications money, but recognizing that we need to make sure we don't run that dry and then all of a sudden be high and dry and not be able to finish the financing. And I would hope that our budget would improve through the year as we work some of these details out, as with insurance, as with the property management. But, I don't want to make an assumption that, I have an egg on my face when it doesn't turn out.
Well, I think what Casey and I have tried to do is worst case scenario. If you think we ought to increase the personnel, then we have to increase the revenue as well, which would mean we cut the bulk telecom
May I
off
show you
sooner.
May I show you the numbers?
Sure.
This is the current number. This is Pope's proposed new number.
What number are you using? 464?
No, there's the current number right there.
Yeah, right, 420.
Oh, you showed me 360 something.
No, that's last year.
Oh, okay.
And then these are the other.
Okay. Any comments, Al?
Well, I think sometime we're going to have to pay the piper. I think I voted against the raise last year. I thought it should have been higher. I think we got to raise the HOA fee this year. I voted against the raise that we had last year. I thought it should have been higher. I think at some time it comes time to pay the piper, and I think we need to consider that. If things can be cut, then maybe the raise, can be minimized. But I also don't think that we should gut the telecommunications fund, to pay for what our operating expenses now. I think we should, part of it should come out of the telecommunications fund, and part of it should come out of an assessment cost increase.
Have you got a thought as to how much it should increase?
I think maybe $20 a quarter would be $80 a year would put a big dent in our.
And Don, do you have an idea for the amount to increase?
I was thinking the similar, and that was the number that we also, the 610 was a number that we entertained last year up until the very end.
610 it was? From 590. So a $20.
No, it was 587 and
something.
change
yeah.
last time.
Okay, close enough.
Ron?
My thoughts are, I appreciate first off, appreciate all the hard work on the budget. Thank you, Casey and Bill and the Finance Committee. My thoughts are that if there are specific projects that we want to do next year We should discuss them. The board should vote on them, and then we should incorporate them as part of our budget. If there aren't specific projects next year, we should fund the operating account appropriately. And if we later identify next year additional projects we want to do, capital improvement projects, we should discuss it, or the board at that time should discuss it, and then the following year we plan funds for it. We have our reserves that are fully funded, and I don't really see the need beyond a contingency to create this third additional savings account. I believe CenturyLink was earmarked for the clubhouse.
Yes.
By the end of the first quarter, it will be fully funded. At that point, it ceases to exist, and it goes into operating. So I would follow the recommendation of the Finance Committee.
I feel similar. I think the board was very committed to going forward with the clubhouse expansion, even when, prices came back very, very different than what the community had originally thought. We funded it. We said how much it was going to cost. It appears to be that it's coming in at that budget. I think that basically any extra money that is coming in needs to go to the operating. It seems crazy to me to fund potential future projects that could get us into the same type of situation where we have a chunk of money and it's just up to the will of the board to choose what it's spent on. I cannot see going out to the community and saying, we told you there wasn't going to be any increases, but we're building the clubhouse and now you're going to have an increase. And we don't know what we're going to use that money for yet, but we need to take it. I would agree that it needs to go into the operating. That's it.
Kathy?
I agree with what Ron was saying about sunsetting the telecommunications fund, redirecting it to the operations. And as far as setting up an additional or a new fund, a capital improvement fund, the fact that it's unspecified as to the end use is a concern for me. Bill?
Casey? Are there any of the expenditure line items that you feel could be cut, reduced?
Going off of the numbers that Pope gave us from payroll, without playing out a full year and taking a look at that, I wouldn't want to change that if that was something that needs to be. The increase, of staying with the current, management, those are the big items there. And all the expenses I've racked over. If anything, I would be the same way, to protect any shortfalls with insurance. Those increases are definitely justifiable at this point based on history. And so landscaping, the landscape committee requested almost $55,000 increase. And so we bumped it back to $25,000. That was based on their recommendations for multiple different projects. Again, without being fully involved in all of that and being able to see a history of it, it's being requested by the landscape committee is all really I can go off of at this time. Increasing it $55,000 based on their recommendations. I didn't see that justifiable, so I brought it to the board at 25. If you guys think that 55 would be a better, number there, let me know. And those are really the big items there. Repairs and maintenance. Where do you stop with that? There's a lot of large items that aren't necessarily in the reserves. So that was increased, and I think that it'll be spent very well. And let's see what else the large increases. those are really, you know, we did a flexible with the new clubhouse, trying to play those numbers with, you know, we'll cut certain months, but then we'll possibly increase other months. So trying to do that balancing act. We did try to do that with electricity. We tried to do it with the cleaning company. We tried to do it with different items there. Where will we save for a few months, but then where will it increase? So we did take a look at those different things and take them into consideration. So there's nothing I would and items that I would be, you know, cut back. I would probably lean to the board for thoughts of the landscape projects. You know, I think that with landscape, the same thing. You could go on and on and on. But I did hear feedback with the trimming of the trees down Sandoval Parkway. So the tree trimming for me is very important. If it's needed, tree trimming's, you know, it's hanging low and it needs to be trimmed. I'm not sure of the complete history of the project. You were saying, I think it was, Dawn, that there was another tree trimming project that took place?
Well, last year we took money out of the reserve in addition to the money that was allocated here and trimmed every tree in Sandoval.
So as an annual tree trimming, I think that again, price negotiating, seeing, you know, what we can do for the year, but that's based off the recommendations for the landscape committee. And those are the line items that are the big ones there for increases.
And is that without taking any money out from the reserves?
There's no money for tree trimming out of the reserve. That was a 3-year number that we used all in 1 year.
There was the addition on top of the 55.
Well, that
the
we did
landscape
last year.
was
This would be
asking for an
year number
emergency
2.
fund as well.
2021 would be year number 2, and 23 would be year number 3.
This year and next year's.
But the reason that
last
we
year.
did that is that we got such a tremendous price on doing it. You save
sense.
almost half of what it would cost you to have it done.
And I know the landscape committee has been thrown several projects at them that weren't necessarily things that they planned on doing, like saving plants and bushes and trees and moving. And there have been some projects that weren't your normal replacements that are needed. Essentially, sod is very important. A request that they had in here. And then there was also, I believe it's the Pine Island gate that has had several residents requesting that is enhanced. So those just off the top of my head are some of the items requested.
Okay. Well, as I presented at our last board meeting, we got $2,042,000 in the bulk telecom fund right now. We'll put another $134,000 in the fourth quarter of this year. If we fund 1 quarter of next year, that's another $134,000. So that'll give us right at $2.3 million in that fund. I'm comfortable we can do it at that. I don't see that we need to continue funding it and then have the problem of what do we do with that money afterwards, because we can't just transfer it. Well, I guess we could transfer it back to operating after the fact, but I'd rather go ahead and plan on doing it now.
Let's make sure there's no disagreement. I'm on the expansion committee, and it's my understanding that if we continue to contribute to the expansion to the end of the first quarter, we would have sufficiently paid for the expansion.
Well,
anyone? Do you disagree with that, Don?
I just don't think you should eliminate a fund until you have the project complete. That's my point.
well, you got to remember,
We're not eliminating.
300.
No, you're not. And you're not eliminating, and if you leave it there and then you see that you don't need it, and then you've got it available to transfer in the following year, I think you're moving a little too quickly here until you've got the project complete.
Well, you're not taking into account the, $300,000 from reserves for remodeling this building. So
Right.
$2.3 million plus that 3 is $2.6 million.
I don't disagree with that, but I just don't think that. I think that the litigation, some of these costs I think you're going to see money. It's not the amount that you quoted there is not going to cover what it requires for the experts.
Well,
We're building a contingency of, I believe,
Of 50,000.
50,000. Obviously, we should have been building this contingency for the last 5 years.
The number of
It
years,
was
yeah.
essentially ignored.
Well,
we can't build it in 1 year, frankly.
Well,
we built a little bit this year, but we spent
whether
some of
you
it.
move the telecommunications money into the operating, fully committed to that, you still can do that, and you can still build the contingency. I'm not against the contingency. I'm not against with any of this.
Right.
It's to me, it's more of when you do it, not how you do it. You know, I just don't think it's prudent to count on that until you've got the project done. And I don't think it's prudent to count on not needing some of that for the litigation piece either.
Well, frankly, I do agree to a certain extent the litigation costs can be somewhat unknown. But I am confident that with our numbers and the amount we've stressed, that those numbers are hard numbers to our construction manager, that we will be fully paid by the end of the first quarter with some excess, frankly.
You're talking two different subjects.
I agree, but that's the original question that I
But
let out.
you are too. You're saying litigation costs might mean a reason that we should continue to fund the telecommunications fund.
Well, I think we need
So
to
you're-
think about how much you think that's going to be. I don't see that as an unknown because these people are going to work at a significantly hour rate, and I think that those numbers will
Absent
jump
having
up
those
fairly
numbers,
quickly.
we couldn't reflect them in this budget.
Well, no, you couldn't. That's why I wouldn't want to try to do that. But that you know, you can have your vote. Do what we want to do. I will listen to what you have to say. But you know, I've said what I had to say, and you either buy it or you don't.
Well, to some extent, a budget is a guess. It's your best guess, but it's just a guess. If it turns out we've got $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 in litigation fees, well, we might have to cut some landscaping. We might have to let an employee go. We might have to do something else later in the year if we've already set this budget, because you can't go back and tell the homeowners, well, now it's June and we're going to increase your assessments now.
Well, that's exactly my point. You're expressing exactly my point. And so to avoid that type of discussion or even that type of consideration, you have an option.
Well, again, I'll reiterate that we are funding a contingency account that should more than cover that worst case scenario.
And as long as Ron's comfortable that would cover it, I'm comfortable with that.
We've earmarked $30,000. We have a $25,000 payout that we paid out this year. Plus, we should have $60,000 plus in a contingency fund. I'm quite comfortable that will cover a year's of expenses associated with any Taylor Morrison litigation.
Okay. So far, Don and Al have both suggested we should increase the quarterly assessment from $590 a quarter to $610 a quarter. There have been no suggestions for any changes to any of the expenses, and Don has suggested that we delay transferring bulk telecom revenue into operating beyond the first quarter. Is there anything else that we need to be discussing? Okay.
Not for me.
Any thoughts on any of those issues before we present this budget for ratification and presenting it to the homeowners? Hearing none, I'll make a motion that this budget as presented be presented to the homeowners at a date certain
Yes.
to be adopted as our official budget at that date. Do I have a second? Second. Discussion? This is your job. I should be doing that. I make a motion.
No, I asked you to facilitate it because you're the expert. So, is there further discussion? If no discussion, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed? All right, so Al and Don opposed. Scott's absent. And then Melanie, Ron, Bill, and myself in favor. So the motion, as Bill cited, has passed.
Okay.
Thank you. And just as a reminder, the board, the annual budget meeting is scheduled for Thursday, November 19th at 4 p.m., right?
Right.
And that was discussed at the last week's board meeting, that date, which allows for the 14-day advance mailing of the budget to the residents.
Correct.
That's the date certain I was referring to.
Yes.
I knew it was.
Yeah.
Slowly catching on.
All right. Any further?
What's the location?
Hopefully here.
It'll be virtual?
Or in your container.
Well, if it's going to be here, we probably need to vote now to make this room available, because it's closed now. You mean here for us and virtual, or you mean here for the homeowners?
virtual.
Okay.
That's what I
Okay.
was
Well,
thinking.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
when you
Pardon
said
me.
here, I thought that meant
Oh, no,
for
yeah.
everybody. Okay.
Here, provided that, again, it's still available.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll have the permits squared away.
Well, then we really need to stress when we mail this out, if they've got questions, they need to get them to Casey so that they can be presented to us.
Right. So maybe
Because it's going to be virtual, and
Are we in agreement that it should be virtual?
it's sort of uncertain with the construction uncertainty.
well, construction's not
With
going to
the-
affect November.
But the question
Okay.
is whether we're going to go virtual due to COVID-related issues. Imagine is the question. And if we are, that would be the reason why we went virtual. And if
Right.
that is not the pressing concern, then we can make alternative venues available.
Right. So the current Florida state of emergency is in effect until the 3rd of November, and it's uncertain what is, whether it's going to lapse or if they're going to renew it. And because of the Florida numbers, it's uncertain. I saw something today.
I thought our
So
governor had opened everything back up.
from a phase 3 standpoint, businesses and the masking
Okay.
was scaled back. And your capacity numbers were increased in restaurants. It doesn't impact HOAs.
So we're still technically locked down by the state.
Under this Florida state of emergency.
Okay.
So
But then it'd have to be virtual.
if we do virtual, we can work on the letter and get it out, highlighting some of the key points.
Well, if on November 3rd it should expire.
It's scheduled to right now, November 3rd is the end date for the current.
If it's not renewed, should we have a special board meeting to vote on whether we open this room up for the November 19th meeting to be open to the public?
Can we do it by consensus vote?
Well, I was just seeing, I can't change the notice when we get to a certain point where we're actually preparing the mail out.
Yeah.
So if we
Oh,
changed
right.
a location,
Yeah,
or
the
if we
4th.
changed
We're hoping
it
the 4th
live.
to have it mailed out.
So by the 3rd, I mean, we would be printing
The 4th would
on
be
the
mail out.
2nd. The mail out would really need to go out right
On
by
the
the
4th.
4th. So
Okay.
From a
It
logistics
is what it is.
standpoint,
Yes, what it is.
virtual. Anybody have an issue with that? Don, Melanie, Al?
No.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other comments on the budget?
That is it.
All right, so I move to adjourn.
Second.
All right, Bill second. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Vic.